Hello. So here we are again. We are still in the same Airbnb that we started out at. We're coming up on 3 weeks since we've been here, and one way or another we're gonna have to vacate. Tuesday morning is when we get booted, so realistically we're leaving here on Monday. And we're probably going to a hotel because there's hope that our apartment will be approved soon, but that hasn't happened yet. More on that later. So in the meantime, a hotel it is.
Yeah, getting the approval from the apartment managers has been really interesting because they have a lot of questions about why we're not Japanese, not racially, but so why don't you have the national health insurance, and why don't you have Japanese contacts for your emergency contact? Why don't you have Japanese phone numbers for that? Why don't you have a Japanese phone number where we can contact you?
Mm-hmm. And all of these things have complicated answers that are kind of a non-entity for Japanese people. For example, health insurance in this country, most people get it through their employer, and for those who don't have an employer, there is a public option as well where kind of the government is your insurance company. And it seems to be a pretty well designed system that makes sure everyone's covered for a very low price. But the issue is one of the things the apartment asked is do you have health insurance?
No, let us go talk to the middleman employer for Sergei.
Yeah, so the company that's officially employing me, we went and talked to them, and it turns out I can't apply for their health insurance yet because I don't have a fixed address.
Well, no, it was that for that one, we needed a My Number card. And the My Number card is equivalent of Social Security.
Well, it's not equivalent of Social Security. It's an equivalent of a Social Security number.
That's what I meant.
So the point is, to apply for health insurance through the employer, I needed a special government ID card, which I can only get once I have a fixed address.
Which we found out when we went to the office. They're like, hey, could we have the card? Sure, what is your permanent address?
Yeah, but it seems like everyone's completely unaware of they'll ask us for these different pieces, and the people asking have zero clue of what it takes to actually obtain that piece because they probably got it when they were children.
All the pieces rely on having all the other pieces already.
Mm-hmm. For example, we one of the things we needed for the apartment application is a Japanese phone number, and on the one hand it's understandable, what if they need to get in touch with you? But as it turns out, the government is also careful about who's issued a Japanese SIM card because they're worried about spammers buying them by the truckload. So we needed to visit the local government office and get our temporary, the Airbnb address stamped onto the back of our residence card so that we have a formal fixed address here, even though it's not fixed.
Because they would not give us a phone number here in Japan without an address on our resident cards.
Yeah, so off to the government office to, confirm our Airbnb. At the government office, they actually called the Airbnb landlord to confirm that we're actually staying here before issuing this. So, everyone is being absolutely meticulous about making sure that every box does in fact need to be checked. In America, if you have the cash, you can walk into an apartment manager's office on Monday and then move into a unit on Tuesday, and that would be completely normal. Even if you filled out a form, nobody would actually read it, much less check it. Here they're checking every little thing, and it's taking time. And as part of that, they actually requested an emergency contact, both here in Japan and at home in the States for us. For here in Japan, I actually paid my real estate company, a little bit of money to let me use our realtor as our emergency contact, for lack of a better option. Because again, we have to have one. And they're like, oh, no problem, just put in a Japanese friend. What? Didn't you just make an assumption right there without realizing? But that's the rule, and they're not going to budge a millimeter. But then, we needed one back home, so Dusty's mom is it. And yes, they did, in fact, call both emergency contacts and confirm that they are who we say they are before letting... Again, in America, like, nobody would even read that. But they called, and when the first time didn't work out, then they called me to ask, like, is there a better time when we can reach out to your emergency contact in America so we can confirm that they're real? So they're willing to go through, like, multiple steps of diligent work so that they can both try to, like, work with me while making sure that everything on the form is genuine. And I don't think they're, like, suspecting me of fraud or anything. It might be, like...
This is just what they do.
Yeah, it's just, like, mistakes happen. Like, what if somebody specified the phone number for their emergency contact and was, like, wrong by a digit? And then if we had to use that, we couldn't. And, like, that's a disaster that we are going to prevent no matter how much time and effort it takes. It seems to be their attitude. I mean, interestingly, like, the government offices are some of the most helpful people we've encountered.
We had to have those conversations via the Google Translate app.
Like, there are people walking the floor who have some English skill and trying to assist. Personally, like, get you the right form, help you fill it out. Like, they're, again, like, being very diligent about helping those who need it as much as possible. And then we get to the clerk at the window who doesn't speak English, but then the clerk whips out, like, a handheld translator that you can, like, talk into. And so we go back and forth without too much trouble that way.
Yeah. Oh, and there's also those people walking the floor. If you've pulled a number and your number gets called and you don't come up, those people are going to find you. They're going to look around at everybody's number and go, oh, and they, come up to the front.
Yeah. Like, they'll call the numbers verbally, and there's, like, huge monitors everywhere that show the number being called and actually, like, have an arrow and pointing in the direction you should go to the right window when your number is called. So again, like, they're really trying to be helpful, but the numbers are being called in Japanese. So if somebody doesn't quite hear or understand that, then one of the clerks starts, like, running around to all the people sitting and, like, glancing at their numbers to see, which of these guys is it. In America, I could totally see where, like, somebody waited in line for 2 hours, went to the bathroom at the wrong minute, and they skipped you, and it's like, well, not our problem.
Take another number.
Here, it's, like, very much the opposite of that. Like, the government office is probably more so than any other place we've been to, trying to make sure that everyone's helped, even the people with special needs, which are... Speaking of which, there was actually a baby crib in the government office.
At the back where all the chairs were.
Like, as part of kind of like the waiting area. And the idea seems to be that if you're there with a child, you can let them sleep mostly undisturbed while you take care of business. First, like, the idea that they would think of that and do it, and that nobody would balk at, leaving their infant in the crib while their attention is somewhere else in a different part of the very large room.
There's so many things connected to this concept that are just kind of unbelievable in a good way.
Like, nobody's going to take your child, like, and nothing's going to happen. And rather than you, like, whisking your infant, like, on your shoulder from window to window, you can let them sleep undisturbed for 45 minutes and they'll probably appreciate it. And so will everyone else in the room who has to deal with you. So it's like they're trying to be very helpful, but every single box absolutely must be checked, and no time or effort or expense will be spared to make sure that it is.
Though we've also gotten some advice that, like, some problems, if you provide a little bit of pushback, you might get through. So, for example, we left our marriage certificate in the States because a photo of it was good enough for immigration, so we figured that a photo of it would be good enough elsewhere. The government office says, where's your marriage certificate so we can prove you're married? And we're like, well, it's at home. Can we show you a photo? And they're like, no, that's not good enough. We need to see it. We can't know that you're married unless we have it. And we're like, it's in Houston? They're like, well, we'll put you down as cohabiting for now.
So our idea is, like, if we can't convince them to take a photocopy, we'll just get married again.
but we might be able to convince them to take a photocopy, because we have talked to several people at an international group, and the Japanese friends we've been making, they're like, if you push back enough, and then try another day with another person, you might be able to get somebody to take it. So we'll give it a try first. But if we have a Japanese wedding, we'll let you know.
On another note, we've been attending, there are meetups held here and there. One in particular that we've fallen into by coincidence.
The pufferfish guy.
Pufferfish guy from before got us attending this meetup 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically a lot of people, not a lot, usually...
Depends on the day.
Usually between 4 and 8 total, including us, get together at this little hotel cafe to talk, mostly in English, sometimes not in English. And we've been joining more or less every time now, and it's really interesting. There's the pufferfish guy is a regular, and he's a very entertaining character.
I wish I could film him, but I feel like that would be rude.
And if anyone is watching this who's seen anime, he really reminds me of In March Comes Like a Lion, the guy in charge of the shogi group, who's kind of the
promoting it all the time.
Yeah, the boss in charge of promoting it all the time and drinking with business leaders. This guy seems to have that kind of personality, and he's a lot of fun to talk to. Mikio is his name. But there are also many other people we've had long conversations with over several beers usually. By the way, the side note, but the portions for everything are, both food and drink, are smaller here, and that's a good thing. You're served a healthy portion, and when you go to a little restaurant, and even the tea is served in these tiny cups, usually, which is considered a healthy portion of green tea. The one thing that they serve in American sizes is the beer. If you order a namabiru, which is what they call draft beer, you will get a pint. And when, Japanese people get together to socialize, one does not usually stop at the first pint. The first pint is the gateway drug. A bit of a circle of acquaintances forming.
Which is nice.
Thanks to this. A lot of interesting people, a lot of unique stories.
So, come Monday, we'll be moving into a hotel for a while until we hopefully get final approval from the apartment managers. We have heard some promising noises, so here's hoping. But we gotta wait until they tell us what their decision is.
And even if we do get the approval, we can't, utilities are not going to be turned on.
So we got to get the utilities and the appliances.
Yeah, unless we plan to sleep on the floor, we can't really move in. Even if we had beds and nothing else, we could. But so that would theoretically be the first thing we should get, because if we just have beds and utilities, we can it's livable now. A table would be nice. Not asking for much here.
So keep us in prayer, and we'll update you further from the next place we're in, probably, which is the hotel. In the meantime, we have a collection of videos and photos from being out and about all around Tokyo for the last 2.5 weeks. So enjoy. See you around.
Bye.
Johnny.
We'll get there eventually.
Look at what?
I said we'll get there eventually.
Wrong direction.
We found a raven bath. They're not bathing right now, but they were.
They were splashing around in there like it was no tomorrow. This is Yoyogi Park, or part of it.
Okay.
Take 3 trying to get this one fountain.
This is gozen shiruko. It is like hot red bean syrup with rice dumplings in it, puffed rice dumplings. They are chewy and the syrup is delicious. It was wonderful. Is your day sad? Have a fuzzy pile. Less interested in being photogenic. Hey Bonnie, I found you. What are you doing in Japan?
Digging apparently.
Bonnie's digging in Japan. I see.
With her many friends.
Yes. Look at all these mongooses.
Or are they monkeys?
Monkeys.
国力を高めるなら男性と野上義則でございます。食と健康のプロ、参政党の野上義則48歳ラガーマン。
元気に営業中です。いらっしゃいませ。
You have to walk in,
入った入った。
you have to walk in front of it.
拍手に呼ばれていらっしゃい。ほんじゃまっかほんじゃまっか。見るだけでもどうぞ。ありがとね。